Have you ever wished that Hermione married Harry, Rachel picking Joey, and Naruto running off with Sasuke? Then fanfiction is for you, and we'll show you why it's not just a hobby for 13-year-old girls as it's often portrayed. Beneath the surface of what many dismiss as teenage fantasy lies a powerful form of storytelling, one deeply intertwined with politics, identity, and society. Fanfiction is a non-commercial form of art. People write it simply because they truly want to, knowing they won't make money from it. Fanfics give voice to marginalized perspectives and create space for radical imagination. So what can these stories, written by fans and everyday people, tell us? Not just about the characters we love, but about the world we live in. Let's start by defining what fanfiction actually is. Fanfiction is a genre of amateur creative writing, known as fanfics, based on existing works such as novels, TV series, or video games, or even centered around the lives of real people, like celebrities, actors, musicians, or athletes. A fic writer is someone who writes fanfiction. Canon refers to the original source material that fanfics are based on. Shipping is the act of imagining romantic or sexual relationships between characters who are not together in the original story. There's a common misconception that fanfiction is a recent creation born from pop culture. In reality, fanfiction has always existed, simply because people have always loved creating new stories based on existing characters and plots. In fact, fan literature has existed for several centuries and is often a response to social change. It's widely believed that the kind of fan fiction we know today, stories exploring romantic or sexual relationships between characters, emerged in the 1960s thanks to Star Trek. The world was obsessed with space. Serialized TV was starting to eclipse big-budget films. America was in the midst of an economic boom, and color televisions were in nearly every household. Gene Roddenberry, the creator of the franchise, knew how to listen to his fans, and he had a lot of material to draw from. He not only read fan-made zines, but called them required reading for anyone making policy decisions about a television show. But why is fanfiction so closely tied to politics and society today? Thanks to initially low expectations and the absence of any strict rules about content or form, fanfiction proved to be incredibly resilient. Anyone could write it, and it reflected fan sentiment far more authentically than dry, adult discussions, reviews, or public readings. Traditional mainstream culture lacked representation of different races, genders, and sexual orientations for a long time. In fanfiction, fans started writing stories where they could finally see themselves, reimagining the canon to reflect their real or desired identities. With the rise of the internet, the volume of fan fiction exploded, becoming more diverse and accessible. However, the internet and anonymity aren't what caused the genre to grow. They're just convenient tools that helped it thrive. Fanfiction serves an important function. It gives people back the modern myths that corporations have claimed in order to profit from them. Every story contains countless meanings and subtexts that can be uncovered simply by asking, what if? Fanfiction has become a valuable tool for subcultures and the LGBTQ+ community. According to the unofficial demographics survey 2024 on the leading English-language fanfiction platform, AO3, 37% of respondents identified as at least partially bisexual or pansexual, 27% as asexual, and only 12% as heterosexual or straight, highlighting the significant representation of LGBTQ+ identities on the platform. By the way, the name AO3 is also quite political. Its full title, An Archive of One's Own, is a reference to Virginia Woolf's famous essay, A Room of One's Own. In her essay, Woolf uses metaphors to explore social injustice and comment on the lack of freedom for women to express themselves. The main idea is, every woman, if she is to write, must have money and a room of her own. Although the idea of 13-year-old girls writing fanfiction is a myth, most fic writers are over 21. 57.5% of AO3 users identify as women. This is largely related to their reaction to patriarchy and the lack of a sense of safety in real-life relationships. Often reading smut fanfiction, stories that describe sexual practices, becomes a safe process that aids in self-discovery. Smut fanfiction is a fully controlled fantasy, one where, unlike pornography, no one is exploited. Fanfiction is a comfortable space where you can experiment with familiar models and understand your feelings about certain practices. Unlike pornography, fanfiction has a universe, context, and emotions. Pornography doesn't take into account the inner experiences of the characters. Many fic writers include sex in the context of their favorite stories and characters, not because they feel the original texts are incomplete, but because they are looking for stories where sex has meaning and significance. Additionally, much of pornography remains heteronormative, whereas fan fiction does not. Unlike pornography and erotic novels, smut fanfics are always accompanied by a system of tags and warnings. Tags can be general, such as friends to lovers, where characters start as friends and later fall in love, or more specific, like BDSM. Warnings also address sensitive scenes that could be shocking. All of this makes controlled fantasy even more manageable and safe. You can find a fanfic to match almost any fantasy or desire, with any characters, settings, and pacing. It's much more finely tuned to the reader than most porn. Unlike porn, fanfiction can be read at your own pace, allowing you to skip or choose scenes without the risk of visual shock. Fanfiction actively represents queer relationships, asexuality, different body types, and diverse models of love. All things that are often stereotyped or marginalized in mainstream porn. Plus, the reader is fully in control of the experience. You decide what to imagine, how to feel it, and at what pace. By engaging with something familiar, like a known narrative or characters, we feel a sense of security. Interacting with familiar characters in new circumstances can be very therapeutic. This is why anxious people often enjoy rewatching the same TV shows. In addition, fanfics often explore themes of war and politics. Unlike books published by mainstream publishers, they are not censored. And fantasy provides an easier way to make allusions to real political events. Each fandom is its own community, often united not just by reading fanfiction, but also by shared values. Many fandoms are based around works with a clear anti-war or anti-slavery message, such as the fandom for the dystopian franchise The Hunger Games. This influences fic writers as well. One of the most popular fanfics in the world, Manacled, set in the Harry Potter universe, imagines an alternate ending where Voldemort and blood supremacy ideologies prevail. Its author, Senlin Yu, explores themes of war, racism, moral choices, and how history can be rewritten to erase uncomfortable truths. This fanfic has been read several million times and has been translated into multiple languages. In real life, after the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, many authors included links to aid funds in the notes to new chapters of their fanfics or wrote about the war, hoping to raise awareness among as many readers as possible. Fanfiction has become a form of sublimation for those who oppose the actions of the authorities. For example, when Russia passed a law banning the LGBTQ+ movement and subsequently blocked Ficbook, the main fanfiction site, users began writing fanfics about the situation, using VPNs to bypass the ban. In China, persecution of fan fiction writers and authors of original erotic stories has long been a common occurrence. Dozens of Chinese gay online fiction writers have been targeted since June as part of the country's campaign against pornographic content. Online fiction, including fan fiction and erotic fiction, has mushroomed in China in recent years. In 2025, at least 10 people in the province of Anhui have received prison sentences for posting gay erotica online. Chinese journalists based in other countries reported that the author known as Yuan Shengbai Yunjian was sentenced to 4 years and 6 months in prison. Another writer allegedly received a sentence of 1 year and 5 months. Media also reported on several posts from people claiming to be family members of people who have been arrested for publishing gay fanfiction. One woman said that her sister, a fanfiction author, had been missing since mid-June and asked readers for donations to help reduce her prison sentence. Currently, users of the American platform AO3 are worried that the site may be blocked as well. The site's owners state that, for now, there is no threat to it. Nevertheless, the possibility of AO3 being banned, following the example of other countries, remains because Donald Trump already has made several anti-LGBTQ+ statements throughout his political career. One of the most notable was his opposition to same-sex marriage during his 2016 presidential campaign, where he argued that the issue should be left to the states rather than the federal government. Additionally, his administration rolled back several protections for LGBTQ+ individuals, including banning transgender people from serving in the military and narrowing the definition of gender in the legal context. Trump's rhetoric often reflected conservative views, and his policies were seen as a backlash against the progress made by the LGBTQ+ rights movement. Literature has always been closely connected to political and social processes, allowing authors to express their dissatisfaction with current events or capture the mood of society through their creativity. It's no surprise that fan literature, free from censorship and the pressures of publishers, has absorbed this trend even more. And it's not surprising that authoritarian regimes, with their oppressive nature, see a threat in the free-spirited, uncensored fan community. At the same time, it's no surprise that fanfiction has exploded into the mainstream lately. Fanfic isn't just something that lives in the shadow of the original. Sometimes it creates a whole new cultural wave. 50 Shades of Grey started as a Twilight fanfic called Master of the Universe. E.L. James just changed the names, and boom! A global bestseller and $1 billion franchise. After, by Anna Todd, was a fanfiction about One Direction on Wattpad, and it turned into a hit book series and movies. Even Cassandra Clare, before The Mortal Instruments, wrote the Draco Trilogy, a famous Harry Potter fanfic that built her a huge fan base. And now, in 2025, we're seeing even more fanfic success stories. Senlin Yu's Manacled is coming back as an original novel called Alchemized, and it's already blowing up in pre-orders. Brigitte Knightley, known in the fanfic world as Is This Self-Care, is publishing The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, a romance based on her viral Draco Malfoy and the mortifying ordeal of being in love. Both novels are vivid examples of how fanfiction isn't just a side hobby anymore. It can serve as a launchpad for a professional literary debut.